So as my final project, I'm going to be talking a little bit about QuickBooks. So we did QuickBooks. It wasn't the biggest part of our class, but it has a lot to do with accounting information systems. And the greatest thing about it is that it does so much for the small business, mid-sized business. And even though the big four and huge companies don't really use it so much, it's really for that smaller mid-sized business. One of the greatest things I think QuickBooks does is when you enter it in one place, it puts it everywhere. So let's say you have an accounts receivable. So you debit accounts receivable, credit sales revenue. But in the section where you write customer one, then in the sales receipt, it'll generate a sales receipt, it'll generate a sales invoice, it'll generate different things. Then it'll say on your balance sheet that your AR, let's say, went up $200 and your service revenue went up $200 on your income statement. So everything is always affected by what you say in your QuickBooks journal entries or sales receipts or whatever it is. So QuickBooks allows you to be versatile. It allows small businesses to manage financial statements. It allows them to put journal entries all in one place, and then they could create a ledger. They don't have to say, I have to make journal entries. Then I have to make a ledger. I have to go through every single thing and put it in a certain account. Then I have to put it in the balance sheet. Then I have to put it in the income statement. Instead of taking what would be an hour to do just a few entries, is now takes 30 seconds because that journal entry is so quick. You just write accounts receivable debit for 200, service revenue credit for 200, with customer one being the person. So that's great. And QuickBooks really allows that small business to advance in this technology world. Another thing it does is that it has so many different reports, so many different features. So one great thing about QuickBooks is that you could generate not only an income statement, not only a balance sheet, but specialized statements. So it's not just a balance sheet standard, it's other types that will have other types of things that you wouldn't necessarily have in a balance sheet standard, or less. Let's say you only want to know certain things that are in a different kind of balance sheet. There's so many different things that accountants can use, and QuickBooks has that for the small to mid-sized businesses. Another great thing is that you could use it for as many clients as you want. If you have 2 clients, you can have it for 2 clients. If you have 200 clients, you can use it for 200 clients. If you have 2,000 clients, you could use it for 2,000 clients. It doesn't matter. It's one flat fee. And so as students, we actually got it for $150, and now I have it on my computer installed for life. So if it doesn't matter that I'm working off 2015 QuickBooks, then I could create so much revenue just from having QuickBooks on my computer. Learning how to be in accounting information systems and learning about QuickBooks small to mid-size is equally as important as Big Four technology and Access and Excel, because that's what people use. Not everyone goes into the Big Four, but even the people who don't go into the Big Four, they have to understand that that journal entry isn't just going to say debit accounts receivable, credit service revenue. It's going to be credit accounts receivable, debit accounts receivable, credit service revenue. But that affects so many different financial statements. That affects so many different forms, invoices, sales receipts. What happens if they return? Does that go to sales returns and allowances? What happens? That could all be done in simple journal entries on QuickBooks. And if you don't want to work from journal entries, you could work from inside the register. So you could go into the cash register and in QuickBooks, and you could say, okay, I took out $200 cash for this, and it'll turn that into a journal entry. And it's wonderful because there's so many different things that you can do within that realm of QuickBooks. Another great thing are some of the features they have for contacts. So you could have all your clients in there. Personally, I worked for a small business this summer, and I was able to learn about QuickBooks. So coming into this class, I think it was a little bit of an easier transition. But in general, there's so many different things. So if you want to pay extra, you could pay bills on QuickBooks. You can manage inventory on QuickBooks. Though it's not the best inventory manager, if it's just a small business, listen, you don't have to pay for a whole nother system, and they only have limited inventory, then QuickBooks is great for that. I would say Peachtree is more versatile for the inventory section, but in general, having QuickBooks can really do everything a small to mid-sized firm needs from a write-up perspective, from writing up different accounts and saying, hey, so and so, I need all your information. They give you bank statements. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to go and make journal entries by hand, then put that into the ledger, then put that onto the specific balance sheet, income statement, this, that? That's not realistic anymore. That's what they had to do back in the day 50 years ago. But nowadays, we have a computer that we take 5 seconds, 10 seconds for a journal entry. We know what goes in there. Maybe if it's a long journal entry, a minute, versus it took a crazy amount of time, at least probably 10 times the amount of time to record one journal entry, because when we record the journal entry, it goes to those specific statements. When you're doing it by hand, it obviously just does not go to the specific statements. You have to write it into the statements. So having these accounting information systems and having technology has really helped not only the big firms, but you can see it has also helped the mid-sized firms and the small firms, the one-man firm, the bookkeeper firm, the people who all they do are write-ups. All they do are take bank statements and turn it into journal entries, which then turn it into financial statements. When I was showing my friend, for example, what QuickBooks does, you're not only just typing in random things that make no sense to a non-accounting person, but when I showed him these statements, he's like, wow, that's so cool. That's a lot of work. But really, it's the amount that it generates is crazy. That's really valuable to a company. And he, as a communications major, noticed that. And QuickBooks really just does so much. It has contact lists. You can create invoices from it. You can document whether your client's paid or not, accounts payable, accounts receivable, any kind of possible journal entry. QuickBooks could really do it for a small to mid-sized business. I would say from my experience as an intern, there are more clients that did not want to use QuickBooks because they're not familiar with the technology, because they weren't brought up with that. But I think as the generations grow, it's not just going to be handed to the accountants as bank statements. I'm sorry about that. As bank statements, and it's going to be given to them as QuickBooks files. And the job as an accountant will be more focused on not just the journal entries that will already be done, but it'll be done based on other things as well. Like they could spend more time on the financial reports and the financial statements. So when I was an intern, I saw some people sent over their QuickBooks files, and the one danger of that is that some people don't know what they're doing. Some people don't know where to put certain numbers. So one client actually threw $300,000 of a small business into retained earnings. They didn't know where to put it. And that is extremely bad, because it took me about an hour to figure out, wait, retained earnings doesn't balance. They just put it there so that the journal entry would balance, so it closes out. So there is a danger with that, but as more and more clients do it, the accountants could do more of the reviewing while someone else does the actual QuickBooks entering. A lot of what I did as an intern was entering in QuickBooks information, was entering in different journal entries, which is great. I got a lot of experience, and I was even able to help some of my peers this year learn how to use QuickBooks. So what I'm trying to say here is that QuickBooks is an amazing program. It's being used mostly by accountants right now, but I think that it's going to be used more and more by the general public in their businesses, because people want to know what their books look like. People want to know how their financial statements are doing, and everything is affected by one journal entry, and the value of QuickBooks shows that in every one of their financial statements. So it allows them to keep a timely basis on their financial statements. If something happens to the AR and accounts receivable and you entered it, it's going to go directly to the balance sheet, and you know what your assets are, you know what your liabilities, you know what your owner's equity is, you know what your income statement looks like, what your revenue and expenses are, and that is really valuable. So I wanted to thank you, Professor Hughes, for taking these 10 minutes to listen to my presentation, and I want to thank you for a great semester. So thank you and have a good day.